Committee members, I'd like to begin our meeting. Welcome to our guests. And just before we proceed today, I'd like to take a moment to address the point of order raised by Mr. Sarai at the previous meeting regarding the divulgence of in-camera decisions. I'd like to let all members of the committee know that such matters are not taken lightly, and I've taken some time to look at the question in more depth. And after reviewing the blues, it was clear that Ms. Rempel was referencing unanimous decisions made in the House itself and not in the committee. The chair can understand where the confusion arose, as there were a few interruptions during the last meeting. However, between Ms. Rempel's explanation committee and the blues themselves, I am satisfied that no in-camera decisions were referenced. I'd like to thank Mr. Sarai for bringing this important issue to the attention of the committee, and once again invite all members to be cautious when referencing matters stated at previous meetings in general. Thank you. And now we'll proceed to our hearing. And pursuant to the order of reference received from the House on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2016, the committee will resume its study on M39, Immigration to Atlantic Canada. And we have before us today from Louisburg Seafoods Limited, Mr. Adam Mugridge, the Product Development Manager by video conference. Welcome, Mr. Mugridge.
Thank you.
We also have appearing together in person before the committee from the Fares Group, Mr. Wadi Fares, President and Chief Executive Officer. Welcome. And from the Nova Scotia Office of Immigration, Susan Lay, the Executive Director. Welcome. And from Immigration Services Association of Nova Scotia, we have Jerry Mills, the Executive Director by video conference. Welcome to all. And Mr. Mugridge, the floor is yours. You have 7 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon, committee, and thank you for allowing me and my company the opportunity to speak about such an important topic. I feel regarding the topic, our company is well qualified to speak on the matter, specifically in terms of our experiences with labor and the shortfalls and the challenges that we've experienced with labor. Our company operates in rural coastal Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, an area. I was looking at recent statistics, population changes in our area between the years 2010 and 2014 of negative 4.7% to negative 9.9% in Cape Breton, Victoria, and Guysborough counties where we operate. Personally, on the matter, I've seen the shrinking of our population base firsthand. I'm 37 years old. I'm a native Cape Bretoner, born and raised. And I feel fortunate that I've been able to stay in my hometown with a good career. But many of my friends have moved on to Western Canada, to Northern Alberta, BC, or to Ontario. And it's very much the norm for most of my friends and people I went to high school with, that I graduated with. They've mostly all moved on with some exceptions, of course. Our company, Louisburg Seafoods, is involved in the harvest, the offload, the processing, the sales and marketing of seafood products. So this ranges from species like snow crab and lobster, cold water shrimp, ground fish like cod, haddock, halibut, and redfish. And it also includes new fisheries like sea cucumber, whelk, hagfish. It ranges from seaweed harvesting to aquaculture as well, mussels, kelp, oysters. Products like that. As I say, we're located in small coastal towns like Louisburg, Glace Bay, North Sydney, and Canso. And in all, our company employs over 500 people in these places in a variety of jobs, from processing to sales to accounting, office administration. The list goes on. 500 people, that is at our peak. We are a seasonal industry. We can't escape that, even though we try to do our best to avoid the seasonality. 500 people, 500 jobs is significant anywhere, but in our areas, in our communities, it's even more so, given that the small populations of the communities in which we live in, it's important. To many, the fishing industry is seen as an old-fashioned and somewhat of a relic of the past. And the truth be told, in some ways, there are instances of this. But in many ways, and I'm fortunate to be able to say this, the fishery is unique, it's exciting, it's innovative, and for me it represents such a tremendous opportunity for our region and our communities. The potential to grow the value of our industry is tremendous, and to be able to make the most out of our extremely valuable resources, that's our company's goal, and it should be the goal of the entire industry. But what all of this requires in order to do this is people. It really comes down to the people that make this all happen. And this is where we run into a very big problem. For our business, we need access to reliable and productive labor. Our average age in our processing plants is 58. We try to recruit younger people into our operations. We are successful in some cases, but in most cases, we're not always successful. In terms of our philosophy for our workforce and our labor force, our company is very community-minded. We view the fishery as something that should benefit the community, not just the companies that operate in the community. Good local jobs should be a part of the fishery for the community. Otherwise, we ask ourselves, why are we doing it? This really ties into the tradition, I believe, of our fisheries. And I think really the reasoning behind that is because in small rural coastal communities, you have nothing else. That's why they were founded. That's why they exist. It's because of the fisheries. So the importance can't be lost on that. We recognized the challenge of labor that we are going to have in labor probably a decade ago. And we've decided that for us, our company will implement a structure that exists somewhat loosely like this. 33% of our workforce consists of our core workers. That's our local, our traditional workers that have always worked for us since 1984. They come back year after year, and they're our solid workforce. We have what we'll call transient workers, or the people that come and go, essentially. So this would be recruiting of young people, high school students, what have you, who will work in the summer at the peak periods. Short-term workers with relatively high turnover. And then there are also issues of bringing in, there's also a strategy of 33% of either temporary foreign workers or immigration-based labor. That's something that we've looked closely at, and we've had our share of challenges with that. Now, at the same time, our company embraces automation when the time is appropriate, and we will make some serious decisions on investing in automation when the time is right. We've looked at the labor situation, and we've recognized that we as a company can make changes to improve conditions and retain our workers. And it's not just, this doesn't apply to just the current workforce and current residents of our communities, but also new immigrants. So number one, as I had mentioned, seasonality. Nobody wants to work for several weeks or several months and then be on employment insurance. So we've taken an approach to reduce the seasonality of our workforce. We've embraced new fisheries such as sea cucumbers and whelk to add shoulder seasons to our core processing seasons so that people can have a full-time job. Training and professionalization, investing in our workforce so that they take pride in their work, that they view their jobs more as a tradesperson and a skill rather than just as a fish plant worker.
Mr. Muggeridge, 20 seconds, please.
Sure thing. Increase wages and benefits. It's hard work, and the labor market is competitive in some aspects. Why should they make the same doing hard, difficult fish plant work rather than something else? So as I was to summarize.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Faris, I understand you'll be speaking on behalf of the witnesses before, so 7 minutes. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. As was mentioned, my name is Wadia Faris. I am the CEO and President and CEO of W.M. Faris Group, real estate design and development firm in Halifax. And with me today is Suzanne Lee, Executive Director of Nova Scotia Office of Immigration. It is an honor and privilege to appear here today to speak on a topic near and dear to my heart, immigration. I am an immigrant. More than 30 years ago, I left Lebanon to come to Nova Scotia to study. Upon receiving my citizenship, I became a Canadian living in Nova Scotia. Today, I am a Nova Scotian choosing to live and work in Nova Scotia. I strongly believe immigrants add immediate and long-term value to our businesses and communities. They bring new points of view, new ideas, new ways of doing things. They create a stronger, more robust economy. They help us grow our population, build our province, and make Nova Scotia a vibrant and dynamic society. For all these reasons, immigration is critical to the future success and sustainability of Nova Scotia. That is why I accepted in 2014 an invitation from Premier Stephen McNeil to co-chair his advisory council on immigration. I am pleased to be here today to share my perspective on the opportunities, the challenges, and what action by the federal government is required to advance Nova Scotia's immigration priorities and initiatives. We have spent a lot of time over the past couple of years in discussions with the federal government to increase the number of immigrants coming to Nova Scotia. We have met with all officials and stakeholders. We have sat with ministers and staff and all the decision makers. And the result, we are making progress. Together and with the strong leadership of our Minister Lena Diab, and her staff, we are achieving results in Nova Scotia. 2016 was a record year for immigration in Nova Scotia, and 2017 is shaping up to be another successful year. Last year, we welcomed nearly 5,500 new people to our province, the highest number of immigrants since the Second World War. That increase was due to the strength of our provincial nominee program, as well as our response to the Syrian refugee crisis. Nova Scotia welcomed over 1,500 Syrian refugees through government-assisted, private, and blended sponsorship. This is a significant increase compared with previous years in which our province typically resettled about only 200 refugees. But not only it is important that we bring more immigrants to the province, it is also important that we provide the settlement and community support to allow them to stay and integrate into the life of the province. I am pleased to say that overall, newcomers to Nova Scotia are doing well. They are twice as likely to work in their profession than in almost every other province. According to data compiled by the Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia, 71% of immigrant businesses in Nova Scotia will still be open after 3 years, compared to the Canadian average of 48%. Rates of employment insurance used by immigrants in our province are lower than in Canada overall, and about 87.5% of Nova Scotia nominees between 2011 and 2016 were employed. We have a strong network of settlement services throughout the province to support the integration of newcomers through language, employment bridging, workplace culture, employer engagement, family crisis, computer and technical training programs. The most recent data available in 2014 shows that 73% of people who landed in Nova Scotia between 2009 and 2013 were still living here. In the early 2000s, less than half were staying. That's a big improvement. And the Nova Scotia Office of Immigration will continue to support these programs. Another recent success was the launch of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot this past March. As you are aware, it is part of the federal government Atlantic Growth Strategy. The Atlantic Pilot is a significant opportunity for Nova Scotia, which will help employers hire foreign workers and international graduates. We hear from Nova Scotia businesses that one of the main challenges they have for growth is lack of staff. The Atlantic Pilot provides an opportunity for Nova Scotia businesses to address these labor gaps. We are encouraged by the Atlantic Immigration Pilot and its many positive attributes. Flexibility around criteria, the speed of processing, a focus on retention, and the numbers. So far, 209 employers in Nova Scotia have applied for designation, and of those, 123 have already been granted designation. We are very optimistic about the program's early success. In my role as a premier advisor, I hear from employers that immigration is complicated and time-consuming, and some employers are not aware of immigration as a tool for addressing ongoing labor gap. That is why the Nova Scotia Office of Immigration will assist employers in navigating the immigration system and maximize the opportunities available with immigration. Take, for instance, one of the unexpected benefits of the Atlantic immigration pilot, as more employers learn about the benefits of using immigration as a tool to fill persistent labor market needs. All programs can benefit. Because of the interest generated in the Atlantic immigration pilot and our provincial government ability to work with
20
employers
seconds, please.
on which pathway is more suitable, we are already further ahead. Going forward, the Office of the Immigration will assist employees and employers, but the federal government is our key partner. You have the lion's share of control, set national policies, and then appearing before you today, I would urge the federal government to ensure it has sufficient resources to process all applications in a timely manner, including the new Atlantic immigration pilot.
Thank you.
And all provincial nominees.
Thank you, Mr. Faris. Ms. Mills, 7 minutes. Ms. Mills, we seem to have... Oh, there we go.
Now we're good.
You can start again, Ms. Mills. We didn't hear the first part.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the House of Commons Standing Committee. ISANS is the only multi-service settlement agency in Nova Scotia and the largest immigrant settlement agency in the Atlantic region. We've been operating for 35 years. I'm sure you know how critical immigration is to the province, how the demographic challenges that face us are now constantly in our public discourse. Communities are shrinking and employers are now really hurting, and in many cases unable to meet their workforce needs. We just heard that. Increased immigration is central to our future, but please don't take away from this that immigration is not working in Nova Scotia, because it is. Our numbers are increasing, as Wadia said. Our retention rate has increased from 45% in the 90s to 73%. Employers and communities are engaged. We have a unique approach to regulated professions that's led to immigrant, as Wadia said, in Nova Scotia being twice as likely to be working in their professions. The exam pass rates for internationally educated pharmacists, physicians, engineers is way above the national average. Economic principal applicants and family-sponsored spouses have higher earnings in Nova Scotia than immigrants nationally. Immigration is working in Nova Scotia, but we need more and we need to keep more. So a few things that would help. Firstly, resource the Atlantic immigration pilot. To bring you up to date, ISANS has developed 123 settlement plans to date, 109 outside Canada for all the 4 provinces, and a total of 74 for Nova Scotia, both in and outside Canada. The pilot is based on the premise of the need for retention in the Atlantic provinces, and it's assumed that the added responsibilities placed on employers will increase that retention. The whole pilot has been developed with this in mind. While we're excited about the opportunity and working really hard to make it work, in fact determined to make it work, the process is complicated. It demands a lot from the employer, mostly SMEs who have neither experience in nor resources to respond to the settlement needs of their employees. If we're really determined to make this work, we do need to resource the pilot. The AIP is a priority for us. We've had hundreds and hundreds of calls. And to respond to employers, employees, individuals, communities, we need some coordination around it. This is not business as usual. And if we have learned anything in the last few years in Nova Scotia, it's that our increased retention rate is due to 2 things: better selection and increased investment in settlement services. In addition, we need to make settlement programs accessible to the applicants sooner. Right now, we're doing needs assessments for AIP clients, telling them this is what you need, these are the programs you should access, but right now you can't because you're not a permanent resident and you're not eligible. For the pilot, we've amended eligibility for them to allow them to receive the settlement plan before they become a PR. I suspect the rejection rate by IRC of AIP applicants is really negligible. We know they will access these programs once they become a permanent resident. Also, we want them to integrate more quickly. We want the spouses to access the labour market sooner. We know from our research on our regular pre-arrival programs that 78% of clients are working within 6 months of arrival. Let's make AIP clients eligible for federally funded programs upon endorsement of their application. Secondly, increase flexibility around the PNP. If we're seeking ideas how to increase and retain immigrants to the Atlantic, we know that people bring people to a community, and we know that people keep people in a community. In Nova Scotia, we had a very successful program that worked with existing communities to bring people. For example, the local Jewish community worked with the province to bring Russian Jews to Nova Scotia who were finding it difficult to settle in Israel. Around 250 to 300 people came, and only 1 or 2 families left. Of course they didn't leave. They had support. The local Jewish community helped to integrate them to resources, work, schools, etc. For various reasons, the program didn't continue. I know there have been problems in the PNP in some of the provinces. I know that Nova Scotia had its own unique challenge. But we need some flexibility, and here's a pilot ready for the making, a community-supported immigration pilot that uses some of the best elements of Canada's enormously successful privately sponsored refugee program, engagement of communities to attract, support, and retain immigrants. Provinces don't retain people. People retain people. So I'm suggesting that the federal government allow opportunity for some additional pilots outside the AIP. Nova Scotia has demonstrated over the last few years its commitment to immigration and its ability to settle and retain immigrants. Provide us with some additional tools to do so. Before I leave the PNP, I have to take the opportunity to speak to the caps on the PN. While I fully support the AIP, it's the nominee program that's allowed the province to significantly increase its numbers of immigrants for the past few years. We currently have a cap of 1,350. We've never failed to reach that nomination number. Most of our immigrants to Nova Scotia come through the PN stream. If the federal government is truly interested in increasing immigration to the Atlantic, raise or eliminate the caps. The arguments that I've heard against it, that that people don't stay, that increasing those numbers would decrease numbers in the federal economic stream, I don't understand. 73% of people do stay, and certainly most PNs stay. Also, provinces know who they need in their communities and workforce. Let them nominate them, and in Atlantic Canada, let's attract to retain. Eliminating those caps for a pilot for a few years would have very little impact on the overall federal economic numbers. Finally, I'd like to talk about refugees. Refugees are just PR who came through a different immigration stream. They're having a significant impact on our communities right across the Atlantic, and ISANS as an organisation supports increased numbers of refugees, both GAR and PSR. We know that means increased investment up front, but immigration needs a long-time vision. We're growing a province and we're growing our communities, not just responding to labour market shortages. And if we want to increase the number of immigrants into our province, we need to look at all immigration streams. Already our Syrian refugees are asking how to sponsor their family members. Many are not yet in a position to do so, but they will be. And we want to have an answer for them. And we know that refugees who carve out a life in Canada, who have the resources to sponsor family members, when they bring those family members, they don't move anywhere.
20 seconds.
We also know that the children of refugees do really well, and that the Syrian Refugee Initiative opened up opportunities. Don't let's lose the momentum, the goodwill, the support that the Syrian Refugee Initiative engendered in Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Mr. Fraser, the floor is yours. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, each of you, for being here today and joining us and sharing this information that is going to be helpful and useful to our committee as we come up with recommendations to the government on this very important issue. I myself am the Member of Parliament for West Nova and know how important immigration is to not only our province but to my region in particular, where we're seeing labor shortages. We're seeing out-migration of younger people, as alluded to earlier, and I really appreciate the fact that you took the time today to come and share your thoughts with us. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Ferris, if I could. You mentioned that you co-chair the Council on Nova Scotia Immigration, and I know the good work that has already been undertaken, and I appreciate that very much. And as alluded to a moment ago, there are good news stories happening on immigration in Nova Scotia in particular. You talked about employer engagement. I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit, especially now that we're seeing applications into the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project, and talk about why it's so important to engage employers and make sure that we're meeting the needs or fitting the needs of the labor force right across Nova Scotia.
See, at the end of the day, for any immigration program to work, the business community will have to be part of it, will have to be the main pushing for it. And employers are the business community. What we've done in Nova Scotia, I believe we were successful in is promoting the programs that we were able to initiate ourselves as a province. And also when the Atlantic Pilot Program came in, we took it on our, to promote it and within the business community, and it's working very hard. It is, see, employers don't really always know what's available to them. They know they have gaps in they have shortage, they have gaps, but they know what's available to them, and that's what we're doing more and more in Nova Scotia. Is we're promoting the programs. For example, myself and my co-chair, Colin Dodd, Dr. Dodd, we're going out there and we're meeting face to face with the stakeholders, and like we have at least 2 or 3 meetings a month, different business groups, and to explain to them what's available, and that's why you see the success rate from the business community using the immigration programs, and that's what we want to make sure that we keep.
And do you think it's important not only to match up new immigrants to Nova Scotia with employers that have openings and obviously labor shortage issues, but also if you do that work on the front end, then the retention rates of those newcomers to Nova Scotia is higher because they have jobs that are satisfactory to their skills and their abilities?
Well, obviously, I mean, for an employer to be accepted and approved, to be designated, a lot of research, a lot of assessment goes towards that application. And once the employer is approved, that means it's a good employer. We are sure that they're going to give good jobs, and they're going to take care of the newcomers and the foreign worker. So that's why we believe we'll be very successful.
And do you see interest across the province, across Nova Scotia, not just in Halifax, for the new Atlantic Immigration Program?
You want to answer? Can she answer?
Suzanne? Yes, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen, we've had applications from every region of the province for designation. So it's really encouraging. As Mr. Ferris had mentioned, we're hearing from employers who have never considered immigration as a tool to fill labor market needs. So extremely positive for us. Small enterprises, very big companies, a range of occupations and sectors across the province.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hansen, is it? Can I turn to you for a moment? Oh, I'm sorry. I have the wrong. Okay. Just talking about your company, Lewisburg Seafoods, you'd mentioned a third, the different segments of your labor force, and 33% of that workforce you described as solid, kind of long-term career employees. Can you talk a little bit about why it's important to have different segments within your company to, I guess, support their work, and would you be able to do it with just that 33% or that third of the employees who are there long-term without support from other people coming in?
No, absolutely. We would not be able to meet our labor needs with that 1/3 of the workforce. I believe that my point in mentioning why we have a third and a third of the employees is that's sort of how the reality has been within our industry. That's sort of how it's happened. Now, in planning for the future, what we're seeing is that there's absolutely a need for workers from elsewhere, workers from either from immigrants or temporary foreign workers or what have you. The question that we ask ourselves is, the unemployment rates in our areas in some cases are upwards of 30%. And when you see that, you ask yourself, well, if there's that many people that are out of work, why can't we get workers? So we've sort of looked internally for that, and we've looked at some of the improvements that we can make internally to make the jobs more attractive to existing workers, to retain them, to the communities that we exist in now, and also to the immigrant workers as well.
Would you agree, though, bringing in new immigrants with, permanent residency, with a proper fit in the community, and welcoming the family for the long term and to eventually perhaps become Canadian citizens, that would be preferable to a temporary foreign worker program? Would you agree with that for your company?
I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree with that. Bringing in immigrants would solve the issues of community first before it would solve any issues of labor that we have within our industry, which I think is more important. I think it's more important
10 seconds, please.
Strengthen the community rather than strengthen any labor needs that a business has.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Mr. Soroya, 7 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, and thank you for all of you coming up and giving us your side of the perspective and teaching us more, learning most. We all on this table, from this side, that side, and every side, we all want East Coast to do good. And we are all on your side. I can tell you from the immigrant perspective point of view, I came to Ontario 40 plus years ago. I came to absolutely the similar situation what you're going to go through, absolutely white country. When the immigrants come, they're looking for jobs, nothing but the jobs. They want to work 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. They want to be successful. And they want to rent their own apartment, and a year down the road, they want to buy a car. 2 years down the road, they want to buy a house. This is how the economy grows. This is how we succeeded in Ontario. I'm hoping you do the same. Listening to over and over and over.
Hey, let's dance.
What are the main challenges? We heard over and over the population is shrinking the original population is shrinking. What are the main reason the population is shrinking? Is this less birth, people moving away? If anybody can tell us something from anybody, yes, please, go ahead.
Look, the reality is Canadians, the birth rate is not there anymore.
Right.
The old family used to be 4 or 5 kids, no more, doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
That's number one. So we need to grow the population, and we believe immigration is one of the most important elements that we can grow population.
Absolutely, we all believe in this. Is why Ontario is doing very well, because the most immigrants coming to this country.
So the challenge is not only in Canada, it's around the world. The whole world is competing for immigrants. Every country in the world is competing for immigrants.
Does this have something to do with the unemployment or the wages?
I'll tell you, I never worried about an immigrant finding a job. Because I'll tell you one thing, that if someone decides to leave their country, someone decides to leave their parents, their home, their friends, their language, their culture, and go to a strange land, they're not lazy. They have the energy, they're out there, they came to make good and to have a good life and make a more comfortable life. They're looking for opportunities. And look at us in Canada. Immigrants came in and built this country. I can tell you in Nova Scotia, and allow me to say the Lebanese community because I'm background Lebanese, they did a study 2 years ago. Every Lebanese person accounts for 3.8 jobs in Halifax. So this is immigration. That's immigrants. So I'm not worried about them. I worry about what Jerry said, and I agree with her. The community sponsor is the most important program we could put in, because I come to Canada, if I have a community that I can take comfort in, I stay. This is the most important. Because even if I have a job, what happened after 5 o'clock? What happens Saturday and Sunday? You have to make immigrants and newcomers comfortable.
But remember, immigrants are always looking for the opportunity. I tell you, 44 years ago when I came,
Well, that's-
the biggest, the toughest part was to find a job.
But they find their own jobs. They make their own jobs.
I tell you, it took me 9 months to find my first job.
Well, that's easy. 9 months. I mean, so what's 9 months?
People who come to you or come to me or anybody else, they're
Yeah,
looking for the
but nothing-
opportunity.
okay,
That was my question.
Nothing is so easy. Like, you gotta come here and you gotta get yourself familiar with the
Mr. Fires, I
surrounding.
know all this thing. I know this. I've gone through it. You guys came much after. The situation was much better than the days I came from. I want to make sure we do the
Look, I came. I
we
was
do the
18 years
study
old.
so everybody understand. We want to make sure people go to these.
But
schools.
look, but there are examples. I mean, allow me to say this. There are examples everywhere. Like, I came, I was 18 years old. I didn't even speak English. I went to university. So there are stories like this. So what I'm saying, immigrants
Okay, let me
prove themselves.
Let me speak to Adam here. Adam, would you have any opinion on it?
My opinion, are there jobs? Absolutely, there are jobs. We can't find enough workers to fill the jobs that we have right now, and we're talking rural coastal communities. I think the question came up of why people left, why the population is declining. You started your comment with that.
Yes, yes.
And something that I was going to say, and I can relate to it personally, is because there are no good jobs, is some of the comments that some of my friends have told me. And what is a good job? That's a relative statement, but at the time, currently, do we consider a fish plant job as a good job? I think it's a good job. I think it could be improved upon, and we're making steps to make it more attractive to all workers. But certainly, yes, there is, even in communities that have high unemployment, I think that number is not reflective of reality. And I think that just because there's a high unemployment number, we still can't find workers. So there is a labor shortage despite that number. And I think it's misleading to a lot of people when they see that.
Anything from your Ms. Mills?
I think people will stay for 3 reasons. I think they will come, and I think they will stay for 3 reasons. Job, family, community. If they have family there, that's going to keep them there and attract them there. The community, absolutely, incredibly important. But the most important is the job. And as everybody has said, if that job is there, a good job is there, then the other ones will come along with it as well.
20 seconds.
Somebody mentioned in the different last week the students. More students should be coming to the Atlantic Canada. When they go to school, they learn the language, they get educated, they understand the customs, etc. Anybody have an opinion to bringing more students to the Atlantic Canada? Maybe reducing their tuition fee, which is triple the fee compared to the local students. Sorry?
Unfortunately, we're over 7 minutes, and significantly over 7 minutes. Ms. Kwan, 7 minutes.
So we have the international students, a big factor in our immigration programs.
Thank you. Ms. Kwan.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank all the witnesses for their presentation. Mr. Chair, I would like to put a motion on the order paper, if I may, before I start my questions. And I'll move that I put this motion on the order paper, that pursuant to Standing Order 108.1, the committee established a subcommittee of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration to study the issue of internally displaced persons in order to determine how Canada can best respond to the increasing trend of internal displacement and the growing role of non-state actors in global displacement, that the subcommittee be comprised of 7 members, and that the subcommittee reports its finding to the committee. So that's a notice of motion, if I may, and I'm going to move on to questions.
Thank you.
For the rest
you can
of
resume the clock.
My minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue around immigration, we've heard, of course, centers around, I think, immigration levels numbers as well. I know there's a special program for the Atlantic provinces, but really, as it was cited, Mr. Ferris, you were saying that really we need more immigrants. The truth of the matter is we have an aging population across the country, although more severe in the Atlantic provinces. And we also have a situation where, you know, people are just not having as many babies. My mom had 6. I have 2, you know, just case in point, right? So, and that's the reality to which we face today. So the question, my first question then is this. Should we be looking at increasing the immigration levels numbers? Right now it's at 300,000. And so for the Atlantic provinces, should we be looking at increasing that number for the Atlantic provinces? And really, more to the point, to increase that number for the rest of the country as well. So just a quick question to get your sense on this, and then I have a couple of other sets of questions. Mr. Ferris?
Well, definitely, I believe that we should increase the number of immigrants allowed to come into Nova Scotia under the nominee program. We always call to lift the cap, as Jerry mentioned, and we always call to lift the cap because we don't believe, let us do our own thing and see what we can do. I mean, if we're successful, we'll keep going. If we're not successful, obviously, you know, we'll stop. I believe strongly we should increase the number of immigrants to Atlantic Canada, and we should lift the cap that we have to work with.
Thank you very much. Coming to the folks on the video conferencing then. Jerry, we'll go to you, Ms. Mills.
Yes, I do. As part of the settlement sector, actually, we were just debating this morning, and we're actually going to be putting out a vision, a 2020 vision, in the next few days, which will go out to the federal government plus all provincial governments. And that calls for a significant increase in immigration numbers. You can't, in terms of the Atlantic, you can't mandate people to come to the Atlantic. You have to attract people to come to the Atlantic. And so we need some of those tools, as I said, and Wadia's just said as well. You know, allowing the caps to be eliminated. You know, even if you do, I know that is quite a political decision because, you know, other provinces would also request that as well. But you know, if we're really talking about the Atlantic immigration, then we need those tools because the vast majority of people who come into our province are through the provincial nominee program. And other tools like the community identified. Let's look at what would keep people, what would attract and keep people in our provinces.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's actually fair enough to say that we need to increase the numbers. Right now at 300,000, I think that's deficient. In fact, the government's own sort of special expert panel recommended 450,000. And so, you know, the number should be increased. So to that end, I'm going to just park it there. And you're recommending that we should lift the cap on the PNP program for the Atlantic provinces to be sure, but very potentially for other provinces as well. I'm going to move on to another question, if I may. You know, there is this notion about good enough to work, good enough to stay. That's certainly my position. And really, by extension, if you're good enough to study here, you ought to be good enough to stay. And right now, as it stands, our express entry system has created a problem where people actually have to compete to get points in order to even make an application for permanent residence status, which is really a wasted resource because they already studied here, and we should actually working hard to retain them and not sort of say, well, gee, you study here, but we don't really want you here anymore, so go away. So on that premise, do you think then we should be changing our immigration policies to really reflect the notion that if you're good enough to work here, you're good enough to stay, you're good enough to study here, you're good enough to stay, and give folks really a direct pathway to permanent residence status? We'll come to Mr. Ferris.
I believe strongly in this, and we picked up on this in Nova Scotia. We have 2 different programs that deal with the international students that after graduation, they're allowed to work and apply for permanent residence. So we're really, you know, promoting this throughout the universities in Nova Scotia, and we've been very successful in it.
Okay.
I agree with that 100%. If I had the time, I'll tell you about the Mattress King, but I don't have the time. The chairman is very strict.
I know. I was just, I have 2 minutes, but it'll be less than 2 minutes now. Can I just get a quick word from the folks on video conferencing? Maybe just a quick word from Danny and then maybe from Jerry as well.
Yeah, sure. In Nova Scotia, for example, there is a mentorship program in place offered through EduNova here, which it's a mentorship program for recent graduates who are immigrants or who would like to be immigrants, actually. And so our company has worked with 5 or 6 of them since January. And in every case, they've been very excellent to work with. I could see them filling a position within our company immediately in most cases. And that's just a great example of, again, some of the people who are studying who I think could immediately move into.
Thank you. Thank you. So you support it. Sorry, I'm going to cut to the quick because I have less than a minute now. And so I'm just going to move on to my next question because I think it's essential. And that is that on the family reunification for refugees that are already here, we have this 1-year window of opportunity program, but it takes forever for people to process the application. As well, you know, definition-wise, siblings would not be included by way of a definition of a sibling as a family reunification process. So can I just get a quick round? And I'll go to Mr. Ferries if I can. Would you agree that we should broaden the definition for family reunification and then also invest in resourcing in processing
the biggest problem we have in immigration is the process.
Yes.
It takes forever to do anything when it comes to the federal government and immigration process, and that's something we like to stress to do something about.
Less than 12 months or up to 1 year for processing time? Look, would you say that really is the upper limit?
I mean, if you're going to wait 2 or 3 years, a lot of life will change. And
thank you.
So less than 12 months.
Thank you. Ms. Zaid, and I understand you'll be splitting your time with Ms. Lockhart. 7 minutes,
yes, thank you, Chair. I will be sharing this. She will start. So.
Ms. Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to each of you. I just want to build on kind of the narrative that we're talking about, and Mr. Soroya brought it up, and Ms. Kwan talked about it as well, is, you know, why is it that we have an aging population? And one of the statistics that I've seen recently that I thought was quite interesting was that the out-migration from Atlantic Canada is actually less than what it is in Toronto, but we haven't been focused on backfilling with immigration. The immigration rates are nowhere near the same. So, you know, this has been something that's happened over many, many years, and I think it would be fair to say that there wasn't a real focus on immigration as a path forward for Atlantic Canada. The other thing to look at, too, is the percentage of rural areas in Atlantic Canada versus some of the other areas. So, I mean, the challenges that you bring up are real, and the narrative has to change a little bit, too. So, you know, you're a great panel to talk about the processed integration and retention of newcomers. And I'm wondering how do you think we can most efficiently match potential newcomers to the actual gaps in the workforce? Because we don't, you know, in some areas in our workforces, we do have ample number of people that are able to work and filling the jobs, and others we don't. So how do you think we can efficiently make that match?
I think the Atlantic Pilot Program is a great program that will do that, where you talk directly to the employer, and the employer is in control of who they want to bring in. And that's really, it's a pilot program, and I believe it's going to be very successful, and that's something we should probably continue down the road. That's the only way, is engage the business community, make sure that we engage the business community, promote and educate them on the tools that they are available in the province, that they can gap the shortage they have, and let the program take care of itself.
And is that a shift in the way we've approached immigration, is having a bigger emphasis on businesses?
We were never serious about immigration. I'm going to be honest with you. I come from a province that's dear to my heart, but we were never serious about immigration. We've had we've talked about aging population. I've been on an immigration panels for the last 15 years. And it's only about talk. It's not only the last 3-4 years that we really focused, and we said we're going to have to do something about it, or we're going to be too late. So I believe we're focusing right now, and I hope that we could really get the results. It's not too late, but yes, I don't believe we focused. I mean, probably Jerry or Suzanne would not agree with me, but I don't believe that we focused properly on the aging population and on our population issues. Now we are focused, and we're seeing results.
Lewisburg Seafoods, what was your last name?
Mr. Muggeridge.
Muggeridge, thank you. Mr. Muggeridge, you talk a lot about community and how the community has, you feel it very important to engage your community in your business. How does your community feel about immigration? Because that's another narrative that we hear a lot, is that our community's open to newcomers. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The communities that we work in are very open to immigrants. Absolutely. I think there's a recognition that everyone looks around them and everyone knows family members, friends that used to be here and don't, and then they're not here anymore. So, and I think that recognition is, we love our communities, we want to keep them going, and I think the conclusion is that immigrants are really the only solution.
Okay, great. And Ms. Mills, did you want to weigh in on that as well?
A few years ago, my phone was ringing off the hook asking me, come and speak to us about immigrants, why we need immigrants, why we need immigrants. That's not what we're talking about right now. My phone is ringing off the hook saying, what can we do? What can I do? What can I do personally as an employer, as a community? So I think communities are absolutely ready in Nova Scotia. I think there was a tipping point as well around, with the Syrian Refugee Initiative. Mm-hmm. We were really proud of how we responded to that in Nova Scotia. And we heard, to date, we just don't hear those negative stories at all. It's not just a case of this one or two. We don't hear them. And I know there's I'm not so naive to think it's not there. Mm-hmm. But it's usually really drowned out by other more positive voices.
Very good. Okay. And I'd like to know a little bit about the Community Connections program. That came from the Association of Immigrant Services, is that correct? Can you speak to that a bit?
I can speak to the Community Connection.
Yes.
What was the question?
Can you tell me a little bit about the Community Connections program, how that works? You had mentioned that funding is required, so or additional funding? No,
no.
Sorry.
The Community Connections is a federally funded settlement program that connects people to the community. So it could be through volunteers. It could be through, for instance, we have people engaged in community gardens, volunteering in the community, that sort of work. I don't think I asked for additional funding.
Oh, sorry. We were talking about two different things then, but that's great.
I believe, if I may, it's a community-sponsored program where community that exists in Canada can sponsor families and bring them from overseas.
Okay. All right.
They'll sponsor them, they'll support them, they'll be their guidance. Right. And that's, Suzanne?
If I can. Mm-hmm. So under the Provincial Nominee Program, we used to have a program called Community Identified, which Jerry spoke to earlier. And the premise of the program was that we partnered with a number of organizations. At the time, they were regional development agencies and some cultural communities. And so those organizations, economic or cultural, would identify somebody who they knew that could reasonably attach to the labor market. And so I think what Jerry's talking about is bringing something like that back, and certainly Mr. Ferris as well, something that has a labor market attachment piece, but
10 seconds.
You're bringing somebody with a connection.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to thank our panel of witnesses for appearing before the committee today, for your insights. And with that, we'll suspend for a couple of minutes and go in camera for the draft report on the pilot project on LGBTQ2 refugees.